Welcome everyone to the Ready for the Draft podcast. I am your host, Greg Schutz. This is episode 2 of the 2025 podcast series, where we take a look at the draft eligible prospects and get you ready for the NFL draft. And college football season is upon us. What's crazy is week 0 of the college football season actually begins on Saturday. We're going to take a look at those matchups later on in the week. But look, we kicked off the podcast series breaking down the quarterback position from my top prospect all the way through the top 10, also sprinkled in a few other quarterbacks to keep an eye out for as well. And I really want to do that at each position as we head into the college football season. Who are the guys that I really should be paying attention to as we kick things off? And then obviously some other guys that may be flying under the radar that you should be paying attention to as well. So we're going to go ahead. We'll talk about the running backs today. And then, like I said, later on in the week, we'll actually talk about week 0. ACC actually looking to kick things off early. And you got Florida State, number 10 ranked Seminoles with DJ Uiagalelei leading that group. Hopefully, DJ can really resurrect his career. I think he's one of those quarterbacks that was not mentioned in my quarterback breakdown because, frankly, he's really struggled mightily. Ever since that freshman year, he just has never been able to build upon that. Really struggled there at Florida State, transferred to Oregon State, and we really didn't see the confidence that we saw from him as a freshman. But they're taking on Brent Key's Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in Dublin, Ireland. That'll be a fun game. I expect Florida State to come out on top, but the way Brent Key has had that Georgia Tech Ramblin' Wreck playing, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a much closer game than people would anticipate. I mentioned that ACC really getting things kicked off. Rhett Lashley's SMU Mustangs heading into Nevada. Jeff Choate, his first game as a head coach with the Wolfpack there. He's not the only head coach in the Mountain West getting his first game under his belt with his new program. Now look, Jeff Choate, first head coaching gig there in the FBS. So, he gets to take on Rhett Lashley. They're going to want to throw the football around a ton. Preston King, a guy who might be flying under the radar there. Really, I think everyone's going to get to see him out on national scale there, playing in the ACC now. So the Nevada Wolfpack will have their hands full. But Bronco Mendenhall, formerly of BYU and UVA, he's now in New Mexico looking to resurrect the Lobos. And the Lobos are going to be bringing in FCS opponent Montana State. So hopefully the Lobos will get off to a good start there for them. And then the nightcap is going to be Hawaii. Timmy Chang, I believe it's his third year there in the program, and they're taking on Delaware State at home, so that'll be a fun game as well. So really, you've got the Mountain West, you got the ACC. They're the ones that are handling all 4 of those games. And then look, we know what's going to happen. We're going to roll into Labor Day weekend. That's really where the college football season kicks off with a full slate of games. We're going to break down the games to keep an eye on and the matchups that we're going to be talking about. So as we get into Florida State and Georgia Tech, we'll make sure that we're breaking down those games, SMU and Nevada as well, some of the matchups to watch. And then I'll also talk about for the Lobos and Hawaii, give you at least one guy to watch out for as we get into those games. But as I mentioned, I really wanted to dedicate this podcast to the running back position. Last year, with the 2024 draft class, and I say last year, it just happened a few months ago, but we had 19 running backs drafted in the draft. And when you look at this group, from Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, were your top 3 running backs. But it didn't stop there. You also have Marshawn Lloyd. So only 4 running backs taken on the first 2 days of the draft. But then it really gets good in round number 4 with Jalen Wright, Bucky Irving, Will Shipley, Ray Davis, Isaac Orendo, Braylon Allen. A lot of running backs coming off the board there. 4th, 5th round. Really felt like that was the value there. Kamani Vidal going to the Chargers there in the 6th round. I think he has another guy who has a chance to at least shoulder some of the load there in LA with Gus Edwards obviously toting the rock now that Austin Eckler's moved on to Washington. But this draft class that we have this year, the question is really going to be, do we have another running back that is going to get drafted in round number 1? because we know that the running back position has been devalued. But we did see Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs get taken in first round just a couple of years ago. And, we see the impact that both of those players have made. So you know that teams are still going to be taking a look at that quarterback position, wondering if, hey, maybe there is a guy that's out there that I could take in round number 1. And honestly, when I take a look at this group, I just don't see that. I just don't see it happening. But I feel pretty confident about a few of these guys coming off the board in the first 2 days of the draft. Now, Ashton Jeanty of Boise State is my number 1. Ollie Gordon III out of Oklahoma State, number 2 right now. Short lead over Quinshon Judkins of Ohio State, coming in at number 3. Omarion Hampton, another big year there for the Tar Heels. He's at number 4 for me. TreVeyon Henderson of Ohio State, a guy that could have been the number 1 running back had he decided to come out. He comes back and is sharing the backfield with Quinshon Judkins there, who transferred in from Ole Miss. You look at Henderson, he actually had to share the load with Mayan Williams, and so it's an interesting dynamic there. Trevor Etienne of Georgia, formerly of Florida, and he's not quite the prospect that his brother was, but I think Etienne is one of those guys that's going to be very exciting to watch in that Bulldogs offense. And then you got Devin Neal of Kansas. I got him there at number 7 right now. This is a guy, I think, the versatility, can run between the tackles, on the perimeter, can catch passes out of the backfield. Donovan Edwards of Michigan. This guy looks like a wide receiver. Excellent as a receiver. Excellent hands, pass catcher, the route running ability there. He and Raheem Sanders, guy who's just out of my top 10, by the way. But those two guys both look like receivers because, look, Raheem Sanders actually was recruited as a receiver and moved to running back out of necessity. But both of these guys, I think, will bring a lot to the passing game. Jaden Ott out of California is an interesting guy because, he's not the burner that you would expect to see, but at the same time, this guy just gets the job done, gets yards in bunches. He's sitting there at number 9. And then I got Damian Martinez and Taj Brooks, really kind of rounding out my top 10. Big power backs. So just like last year's draft class, this year you're going to get a little bit of everything. You're going to get the little guys. You're going to get the bigger dudes. You're going to get guys who can catch the football out of the backfield. Guys that can do a little bit of everything. And so that's what I think is going to be a lot of fun about this year's running back class. Much like last year, regardless of what you're looking for, you're going to be able to find it with this year's draft class. Now, my number 1 running back, as I mentioned, Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, the junior, 5'9", 210 pounds, built like a freaking bowling ball. Over 1,300 yards on the ground a season ago, 6.1 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns, added 43 receptions for 569 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, this is a guy who, he's decisive, hitting the hole, gets downhill in a hurry. He's one of those guys that, the sudden cutback ability, that low center of gravity, does a great job running behind his pads. You see the vision. There was a 58-yard touchdown against San Diego State. He starts to the right, feels the cutback with the flow going to the right there, puts his foot in the ground, cuts back to wide open space, runs into a DB there at about the 35, sidesteps and breaks a couple of tackles, then shows that speed to take it to the distance. So this guy has that breakaway speed. He has the ability and the vision, cutback ability to really make you miss in tight spaces between the tackles. Once he bounces it outside, he's got some wiggle, will make you miss, runs through those arm tackles, excellent contact balance. But what was really interesting with him was this guy lined up just about everywhere. He was lining out wide, lined up in the slot, with motion out wide, took a catch on a quick screen in space. Anything like that the Broncos could do to get him the football, they were doing it. There was a swing pass. A DB beats the block, able to plant, cut vertically up the field. This guy was nearly parallel to the sideline when he made that cut. It was the Aztec game, and I had to pause it and play it back a couple of times to really see what he did. He was literally squared to the sideline as he's cutting up the field. The body control was exceptional. And his short arms do limit him in pass protection. I think that's really the biggest thing that could get him into trouble. But as a pass catcher, phenomenal, excellent hands. The guy, again, He's got the power, he's got the speed. He runs with that low center of gravity, a guy that can make you miss in the open field, speed to go the distance. Ashton Jeanty, to me, the whole package. Number 2 for the Boise State Broncos. He's the guy that I think is going to end up being the number 1 running back draft. If he isn't, then he should be. Number 2 on my list is going to be the Doak Walker Award winner from a season ago, and that's Ollie Gordon II. 6'1", 211 pounds. The junior look, I mean, you look at the numbers, they don't lie. Over 1,700 yards on the ground, 6.1 yards per carry, 21 touchdowns, also 39 receptions. And when you watch him play, now we know the off-field issues that we have with Ollie Gordon. Was arrested for the DUI. So not really sure how that's going to play out when Oklahoma State has their first game. Is he going to see the field? That's going to be a big question mark. But in all actuality, when you get him on the field, this is a guy that could do a little bit of everything. I think he struggles, inside-out ability with a loaded box, but and the short area burst is a bit of an issue. But you watch him with the build-up speed. He's not going to really beat a lot of angles until you allow him to get up to speed. So a lot of those outside zones really allowing him to get downhill in a hurry and allow him to open up those yards, because once he opens up that stride, he's going to run away from you. But he has some of that build-up speed. That quick acceleration doesn't always happen. So it's one of those things to where you're waiting for the breakaway to happen, and it doesn't always click, and it's really just because he's got some of that build-up speed. But he's patient, lets those holes form, and then explodes to those holes. Love the vision, especially in short yardage and in the red zone. Vision to see the cutback lanes. He does a great job following the pulling tight end coming around. Plants as the safety's coming down, makes a cut. Always looking to spinning and falling forward. There's sometimes where he'll look to bounce it and wants to get outside, and he'll miss some of those cutback lanes at times, so that does get him into trouble. But look, he's got the physicality, the leg drive, the forward lean. The high cut. He's 6'1", 211 pounds, so he's a little high cut there. So there's a little bit more of that room for defenders to work with to attack him. But that said, this is a guy that not only will make you miss in the hole, but he also will run through some of those arm tackles. The strength is evident. You'll see him just lower that shoulder and run through you. One of the things that is really impressive, 285 carries last season, only 2 fumbles. So you think about the ball security as well. That's impressive, especially for a guy that, look, he was always looked to and counted upon to be a playmaker and be the bell cow there for OSU, and he was absolutely able to do that for the Pokes. This is a guy in pass pro who loves to throw his shoulder in. He doesn't always square the guy up. He'll miss sometimes, doesn't quite get that free runner all the time, and as a result, Alan Bowman was getting pressured through that. But look, he's, as I said earlier, he's patient. He follows his blockers. You love some of these lateral cuts that he'll make in the open field. I love his ability, pulling guards, just planning and cutting off of that, and then getting downhill. He's just a lot of fun to watch. And the biggest thing that I'm looking for most of the time, I saw swing passes and wheels, so there wasn't much of the route tree there. But look, he made a huge leap from just 12 receptions in 2022 to 39 in 2023. I want to see if they'll use him even more in the passing game. Really would like to see a little bit more in that route tree from him. Because this guy is, look, he's going to be a 3-down back at the next level. I think there's no question about that. But you just want to see him continue to build upon that. Because, look, there's some other guys who can definitely catch the football out of the backfield. And you want to see Ollie Gordon continue to be consistent in that passing game. Now, number 3 on my list is Quinshon Judkins. Now, Judkins is 5'11", 210 pounds. And this guy, you want to talk about physicality. This is one of the most fun that I've had in terms of breaking down running backs, just because he is such a violent runner. He's a guy that just loves looking for contact, And look, he burst onto the scene there in the SEC, over 1,500 yards on the ground as a true freshman. Really set the stage on fire, right? 16 touchdowns, added 15 receptions to it. 2023, over 1,100 yards on the ground, another 15 touchdowns, 22 receptions. He's going to be sharing the backfield with TreVeyon Henderson at Ohio State. Look, that could be another thunder and lightning. When you think about running back duos, you always think of Reggie Bush and Lendale White. You got the guy who is going to make you miss in the open field, and the shiftiness and the speed. Reggie Bush, TreVeyon Henderson, not saying they're the same type of back necessarily, but more of that lightning type of a guy. And then you bring in the power, you bring in the physicality, you bring in the violence. Lendale White had that, so too does Quinshon Judkins. This is a guy, broken tackles, top 10 in the FBS, a guy that just runs through arm tackles, stiff arms, just some nasty stiff arms. You saw it in Georgia, a couple of stiff arms on the edge to fight through both the linebacker and the defensive back. A guy who has decent lateral agility for a guy his size, a guy that's so violent. But I think really the biggest thing is he just wants to get downhill in a hurry. Once he's able to do that, square those shoulders, watch out, pack your lunch, because don't tackle him high, because this dude is physical. He's going to just shrug you off, and then he's going to drop those pads, and he's going to initiate contact. He's looking for contact whenever possible. What you love is the explosiveness coming through the hole, the vision, seeing those cutback lanes, putting his foot in the ground and taking off. A guy that he's sudden. I think he's able to get narrow, slip through those tight spaces. He's not nearly as shifty in the open field, but I think he gets it done for sure between the tackles. He'll make you miss in the hole. Pass catcher, I think he's one of those guys who does a decent job hauling in the football with his hands. As a pass protector, though, this is a guy who needs to watch his lunging on his blocks. That's really the biggest thing. But I think this is a guy who is capable of squaring up to the linebacker, especially coming through that A-gap, sitting down, showing that good technique on his blocks. So it's there. He just needs to continue to do that consistently. But look, the physicality, it's just what the Big Ten football is looking for. Because Big Ten football, it's all about that physicality. And I think that Quinshon Judkins is going to fit in just fine there at Ohio State. Now you look at Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. 6 foot, 220 pounds, and really had a coming out party in 2023. Over 1,500 yards on the ground, 15 touchdowns, added another 29 receptions as well. When you talk about those 29 receptions, he caught 29 of 32 total targets. So this is a guy absolutely is a very reliable pass catcher. Also went into that Clemson game, 206 carries without a fumble. And then if you'll remember, he had that outside zone, actually runs through a linebacker tackle and shows the speed to go the distance. But of course, the only guy that was going to catch him runs a 4.2 40 in Nate Wiggins. And sure enough, gets there, chops down on the football, ends up being a touchback. But what you love is he learned from that. Because later on, a hole opens up down the middle of the field, bursts to get downhill, sees a couple of DBs, splits them, protects the football as he's going through, then breaks a tackle, gets down the sideline, able to break a tackle from Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and then the speed to go 55 yards for the score. That's one of the things. Look, he protected that football, and then the physicality comes in. He's physical, he's violent, he's going to drop the pad level, and runs with that forward lean. He'll spin off contact, so the contact balance is absolutely evident with him. I think that's one of the things that is really impressive with him is he wants to get north and south. Much like Quinshon Judkins, let's not mess around. I'm not going to try to make you miss so much in the hole. I'm really going to press the line of scrimmage, have the vision to see that hole, and then attack and get downhill. One of the things that he does get in trouble with, I mentioned that Quinshon Judkins looks for contact. So does Omarion Hampton. He'll look for contact sometimes instead of taking the hole there that's opening up in the interior along the interior of the line of scrimmage. You want to see him be able to take that contact when he needs to. But man, if you've got an open hole, hit it and get downhill. Outside zone, does a great job, finding that hole and getting downhill as well. Mentioned his pass catching ability out of the backfield and pass protection. This dude has some heavy hands. You'll see some collisions. There was a big one in the game against Duke. I think it was a linebacker that was coming in. I mean, you want to talk about just stoning a guy. He absolutely laid the lumber there. Just absolutely an excellent block. But one of the things that I really love is the soft hands in the passing game. As I mentioned earlier, against Virginia, there was a 19-yard reception. Drake May rolling out, moving along with this receiver with his quarterback, giving Drake May an easy target to hit as he's rolling out. Makes a nice pass, and he's able to open up and get back to the inside after securing the pass. Gets downhill, runs through contact. So really, the moral of the story there, just in that story that I was telling, is he makes that catch and secures it quickly, and then there's no wasted movement. He's looking to get downfield, and he's looking to make a play. He's going to try to look to run through you. Absolutely physical, runs with purpose. He can be elusive in space at times, but that's really not his game. He's a guy that wants to press that line of scrimmage, get downhill, and then he's going to get physical and run through you. I think there was a time where he had no negative yardage plays, as he was getting into ACC play, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it. But Omarion Hampton is a guy that I think, if he has another big year this year, you can't deny that he's a top 3 or 4 running back in this year's draft class. TreVeyon Henderson, let's jump to him, number 5 on my list. 5'10", 214 pounds. I swear it feels like he's been there forever. But that's only, he burst onto the scene in 2021 with 1,248 yards on the ground, 6.8 yards per carry, and 15 touchdowns. Also had 27 receptions for 312 yards and 4 scores. Just set the world on fire. Freshman All-America there in 2021. 2022, battled injuries. Played in only 8 games, 571 yards on the ground, and 6 scores. And then 2023 again, played in 10 games, still at just shy of 1,000 yards, 926 yards, another 19 receptions. But really, the biggest concern is injuries with TreVeyon Henderson. The last couple of years, he's having to deal with those injuries, and that's really what is going to worry a lot of teams. Is this a guy that can stay healthy? I think having Quinshon Judkins there really is going to allow them to have that running back by committee approach, ride the hot hand. But he's a guy that I'm not too worried about this year. I say that, and all it takes is one play to get injured. But TreVeyon Henderson, another guy who was a wide receiver in high school, so you love the ability catching the football out of the backfield. I actually watched the game against Notre Dame. He lined up in the slot and fade down the sideline. Actually fought through the linebacker jam and gets vertical. Had a step on the linebacker. The ball was underthrown. Kyle McCord threw it underthrown badly, but he fought back to the football. Ended up drawing a defensive pass interference. But look, this is a guy who I think is going to make you miss in the open field. You see the lateral agility, which I spoke of that Notre Dame game. 62-yard touchdown. Makes a lateral cut, bounce it outside. Speed on the outside there. Runs through a diving tackle attempt by the safety at the second level. Then the speed. Defender had an angle, but he was able to keep his balance. Tried to clip his ankles and kept that balance. Finished that run for the score. Counter edge was won by the pulling blockers to get it outside. Soft edge, recognized it, and attacked. That's one of the things. He's so decisive, he'll attack you. If he does a great job recognizing soft versus hard edges. Hard edge, yep, he's going to plant it and cut it inside, get there in a hurry. Quick feet with those jump cuts. He'll jump outside, then quickly jump back inside. That's one of the things that's really a lot of fun when you watch him play. He'll as a receiver, again, understands he'll run to the void in the zone. That's one of the things that's impressive. And you see a lot of the different routes in the route tree. That's something as well. Ran a stutter and go against Wisconsin. Gets separation on the linebacker, Jake Chaney. Just ran right by him, had 2 steps on him. Ball thrown over his shoulder. was just off of his fingertips, but tremendous route running ability on that play. Something that really stood out. A guy that's going to make you miss in the backfield. Just when you think you've got a tackle for loss, he can shake you in the backfield. And, I think time and time again, whether it was a single defender or multiple defenders, he was able to shake them in the backfield there. He's able to get skinny, shoot the hole, get up the middle of the field. I think one of the things, he's a guy that isn't always going to take on the defender in pass protection. He'll whiff at times when trying to square up, just kind of throw his shoulder into the defender a little bit. So you want to see him kind of clean that up a little bit. But look, speed is definitely his game. Quick burst, getting downhill. He can be physical between the tackles. One cut hits the hole with the leg drive there. But look, he's a guy that, for me, the speed, the receiving ability, I think he has a chance to be a 3-down back if he can stay healthy. I'd love to rate him much higher on my list, but because he's been injured the last 2 years, I'm a little hesitant to do so. Remember, Michael Penix Jr., all those injuries, hesitant to put him up any higher on my list to start the year. But eventually, Penix Jr. definitely moved up the list for me, and ultimately into my first round of my final mock draft. I think that when you watch TreVeyon Henderson play, there's a lot to like. You love the explosiveness. If he can stay healthy, prove, hey, I can get through a full year, then teams may look to target him earlier in the draft than I think some people think. Number 6 on my list, hey, there's another ETN, Trevor Etienne. Started his career at Florida. Now he's moved on to Georgia. And when you look at Etienne, 5'9", 205, and past 2 seasons there with the Gators, a pair of 700-yard seasons, 14 touchdowns, also 30 receptions to his credit. And look, he's an ETN, so you know that there's going to be a ton of speed, right? One of the things that's really impressive is the patience to follow those pulling blockers. I'm looking at my notes, and both the Tennessee game, South Carolina game, had some big runs. A 62-yard touchdown against the Gamecocks, 63-yard touchdown against the Vols. Followed the pulling right tackle against the Gamecocks. Followed a right guard against Tennessee. But that explosion gets up the seam, just takes away the angles. That's one of the things that I think is really impressive. Keeps balance, that contact balance as well, and then that speed to take it to the house. He's patient, sets up his blocks, allows the tight end to get over and make the block on the outside for a linebacker, plants, able to cut inside that block, and then that speed to get to the open field. That's one of the things that absolutely stands out. You see him sidestepping defenders in space, some sudden cuts downhill, really exciting in the open field. Quick feet, you'll see him pop up to the right, back to the left, then get downhill and the burst to get through the hole. The lateral cuts, avoiding contact. He's not overly physical. I think he can be at times. And be difficult to bring down, but I think it's more so because of that contact balance. I think this is a guy that you're going to have to come in and make sure that you take him head on, because his ability to bounce off of tacklers, but he's not a guy that's going to necessarily initiate that contact. That wiggle will make you miss on the edge. This is a guy that I think he's a willing blocker. He's going to step up, pick up the edge rusher coming off the edge, a guy that's going to square up that linebacker shooting through the A gap as well. The hands catch. I talked about his pass catching ability, but he's a hands catcher. He's you see that natural pass catching ability, and so I think with Trevor, he's not going to be a first round pick like his brother was, but I think with Trevor, day 2 pick is going to be a solid there, and really excited to see what he does there at Georgia. I think Georgia, their running backs traditionally just have not been drafted very high lately. I mean, obviously you think of Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and some of the others at one point, but lately under Kirby Smart, you haven't seen a running back really take off and be a running back taken in the first 2 days of the draft. And I think ETN transferring in from the Gators, I think he's a guy that's going to be able to do that this season. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in this change of scenery for sure. Devin Neal. You haven't heard of Devin Neal? Yeah, he's playing there at Kansas. They're in Lawrence for Lance Leipold. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch him, make sure you tune in and watch some Big 12 football. 5'11", 210 pounds. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Past season, his best yet. 1,280 yards on the ground, 6.3 yards per carry, 16 touchdowns. Has 53 receptions in his career, including at least 20 in each of the last 2 seasons. So this is a guy that, the versatility, another guy who is a hands catcher, a guy that's going to be able to make plays out of the backfield, catching the football. But look, he's a guy that can attack downhill between the tackles, but then he also has that speed on the outside. You see the outside zone, the vision to see the cutback lanes, foot in the ground, make the cut, get downhill in a hurry, and then use that speed to take off. Patient to allow those blocks to develop. Absolutely. That's one of the things that you see for sure from him. But you see the cut ability, the vision, sees that backside open up, and then that foot in the ground and takes off. That's something that just consistently seemed to happen time and time again whenever Devin Neal had the football. Even between the tackles, pressing the line of scrimmage, the vision to see the lane ultimately opens up. Even if it's to the outside, he's bouncing. He's very decisive and gets there in a hurry. And you love that speed. I think he shows that he can keep his balance after initial contact as well. Continues to drive forward, as I mentioned previously. Look, he was the first 1,000-yard rusher at KU since 2019. And now he's got back-to-back, has a chance to rush for 1,000 yards in 3 consecutive seasons for the Jayhawks. And look, he's a guy for me that I think is continuing to get better and better, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. I know that their offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, has moved on to Penn State, but still, I really want to see what he can do, especially with Jalen Daniels. I think that dynamic duo there they're gonna cause a lot of problems in Big 12 play for sure. After that, who's next on my list? Well, that's Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. Now, Donovan Edwards is an interesting dude, right? Because he's a guy that was kind of playing second fiddle to Blake Corum, right? And ultimately, Blake Corum, has that knee injury in 2022, and then Donovan Edwards just exploded. 991 yards on the ground, 7.1 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns. This past season really wasn't utilized nearly as much, more so as a pass catcher. 497 yards on the ground and 5 scores. But look, he went from 20 receptions as a freshman, 18 in 2022, and then jumped to 30 there in 2023. So that's one of the things as you watch him play. He's built like a receiver. He looks like a receiver. And so another guy who's a natural pass catcher, a guy that is going to use those hands and very quick to secure it and get down the field. Variety of routes. You're going to see him running a ton of routes in the route tree. Really curious to see how he'll be used with Sharon Moore now, the head coach. But he's a guy that wants to get downhill in a hurry. Use that speed. You see his ability to run that arc, to bounce his runs outside. That speed gets to the perimeter in a hurry. Then the vision. Obviously seeing the holes, react with the foot in the ground, burst to get down the field. Look, against Penn State, found a cutback lane on a 23-yard touchdown. Ran up the middle. Zach Zinder blocks down, gave him a lane, foot in the ground, gets there in a hurry, speed to go the distance. I keep looking at my notes, and the receiving just keeps coming up. Good hesitation on a switch route. Slow plays it, head and shoulder fake on that two-way go before cutting outside. Didn't get the football thrown to him, but man, just the route running just opened everything up. I think one of the things, though, is he can't get too patient at times. He'll stop his feet instead of just hitting the hole. He'll miss out on some of those big plays. But that said, I mean, shoot, just think about that Ohio State game in 2022, right? He's square to that line of scrimmage, inside zone, presses the line of scrimmage, then hits the hole that opens up through the B gap to the second level. Quick acceleration. Safety had an angle, breaks that, steps out of an ankle tackle attempt, and is gone for 75 yards, right? Then there's that 85-yard touchdown on another inside zone play. Presses that line of scrimmage, finds the hole this time through the A gap. Runs through an arm tackle in the hole. Speed to go the distance. This dude has that speed and is going to take off and is lightning quick, right? So I think the patience, gets himself in trouble at times. He's definitely a one-cut slasher guy. I think he does a great job getting skinny. Doesn't need much of a crease. He'll find a small crease and shoot through that. He can be powerful at times between the tackles. He'll drop that pad level, runs well behind his pads. The receiving, you love that. As a blocker, he's a willing blocker. Against Minnesota, kept his head on a swivel. But one of the things that he needs to really focus on is not allowing the defenders to get into his chest. Because if that happens, then he's in trouble. He really needs to take control as that blocker. Get the hands on the defender and keep him away from his chest. Don't let him get into your body, because then, I mean, you're done at that point. There's a lot more that defender can do. They can toss you aside. They can drive you back into the backfield, but get those hands out. And that's another thing. You see it at times. So it's not like he's incapable of doing it. It's just the consistency. When I look at Donovan Edwards, he has the chance to be a 3-down back, especially because of his ability as a pass catcher. I think a zone-heavy scheme, inside-outside zone, will allow him to take advantage of that one-cut slashing mentality. That's really what you'd like to see out of Donovan Edwards. So the next guy on the list is Jaden Ott out of Cal. Jaden Ott is not a guy that people are really talking about, but I think as people start to watch him in ACC play, because look, playing at Cal Berkeley, you're not talking about their offense. You're really not talking about Cal at all. I don't think there are too many people across the country who know who Justin Wilcox is. The head coach there was a defensive coordinator. He's a defensive-minded head coach. So if you're talking about Cal, you're probably talking about their defense. But Jaden Ott is one of those guys that's kind of changing the narrative, changing that story a little bit. As a true freshman, came in 897 yards on the ground and 8 touchdowns, and then 46 receptions and another 3 touchdowns. Follows that up in 2023, stellar year on the ground, over 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, and then contributed another 25 receptions. So a guy that is well-versed as a pass catcher, but also can get the job done for sure on the ground. A guy that, he added 5 pounds from 2022 to 2023. You love his ability to run through contact. Week 1 a season ago had 109 yards after contact in one game. There's some running backs for 109 yards after contact, maybe for an entire season, but 109 of his 188 yards against North Texas in game 1 were after contact, which is phenomenal. This guy, first team all Pac-12, and he'll be a guy that will probably be the first ever to be a first team all Pac-12 one year and then first team all ACC while at the same school. But I think there's a chance for him to be able to do that. I know ACC, there are a lot of top running backs, guys that we've already talked about, guys we will be talking about. But I think Jaden Ott is a guy that the East Coast really needs to learn more about. Number one is legit. He led the Pac-12 in rushing a season ago, so let that sink in for a second. He's very patient. That's one of the things that you'll see. He ran a jet sweep against Texas Tech in the Independence Bowl. Very patient to allow those blockers to set up. Gets outside that receiver block in the slot, then speed down the outside. When he's finishing out those blocks, he's still looking to try to create. He's still trying to cut inside receiver blocks down the field. That's something that you can definitely appreciate. Against USC, I know USC, Alex Grinch, that was a terrible defense a season ago, but 131 yards on 6 carries and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter alone. just absolutely insane. But a guy that, he loves to get downhill at speed, but to set that up, again, patient, allows those blocks to form, and then you'll see that lateral cut to get there, and then he can be very explosive. But he can also play power football. He'll get downhill, he'll hit the hole, that leg drive to push the pile to finish. Look, he added 5 pounds from the 2022 season to 2023. I think he's a guy who is getting ready to really have a coming out party to the rest of the country. Everyone on the West Coast already knows about Jaden Ott, but I think the East Coast and really everybody in between is going to know about Jaden Ott. They'll be talking about this guy. Who is this guy out of Cal, and why is he beating up teams in the ACC? It's something that I think is going to be a lot of fun to check out. So next on the list, a couple of power backs. I wanted to go ahead and throw them in there as well. And the first one's going to be Damian Martinez, formerly of Oregon State. Now he's at Miami. And look, he and Cam Ward moving from Washington State. Damian Martinez moving from Oregon State, a couple of teams where really their future is kind of up in the air, right? Pac-12, it's just the two teams right now. Really a lot of that uncertainty allowed these guys to team up there with the Hurricanes. And look, with Damian Martinez, he's 6 foot, 232 pounds. So, I mean, he's a big dude. And, this freshman year, just under 1,000 yards, missed it by 18 yards. This past season, 1,185 yards, 6.1 yards per carry in both seasons, 16 touchdowns. Not much of a factor in the passing game. Only 15 receptions. Really would like to see him catch the football a little bit more out of the backfield, showcase what he can do there. I think at Miami, they're going to want to throw the football a little bit more to the running back. So looking forward to seeing what he can do as a pass catcher. This is a guy, look, yards after contact. We've been talking about that. But, 3.8 yards, rushing yards after contact. That's top 15 in the FBS. Very strong between the tackles. The guy that's going to run through arm tackles. Look, he's big. He's physical. So that's one of the things that you need to definitely keep in mind. He'll press that line of scrimmage. He'll look for the hole to open up. Foot in the ground. Cuts downhill. Drops those pad levels. He'll run over guys. That Washington game, he gets to the second level and runs over a safety. Keeps on going. Just loves to run through contact. That's one of the things that was really impressive. But look, they made a quick cut in the backfield in that Washington game, avoids the linebacker Carson Bruner. It makes a lateral cut to bounce it outside. Quick, easy 3-yard touchdown. So again, the burst, getting downhill, hitting the hole in a hurry. He's not a guy that's going to run away from you. He's not a guy that's going to be a speed merchant in the open field by any means. But this guy's going to be physical, and he's going to make you pay. One of the things, it was interesting, though, I watched the UCLA game, and he's got some wiggle to him in the hole. He'll make you miss a little bit and take off. So that's one of the things that was really impressive. But he really got to work with Taliese Fuaga, and watching him make some of those cuts off of those blocks was really something to behold, because the patience allows that block to set up. And I mean, the way Fuaga was dominating guys, it was a quick plant and cutting off of that, and it was a beautiful thing. Against Utah, 4th and 1, defense in the box, option run with a quick pitch. He gets to the perimeter, and once he gets outside, foot in the ground, gets downhill, actually showed the speed to go the distance for 45 yards. I think really, you had the team in the box, showed some speed, but he's not a guy that's going to run away from you. I think it was just based on what they had there in the box, and it was the right call at the right time. But still, showcases some surprising speed for a guy his size. So again, looking forward to seeing what he can do there at Miami. So again, transitioning from the ACC to the Big 12, we're going to talk about Taj Brooks next. 5'10", 230 pounds, out of Texas Tech. And what's crazy is 1,514 yards on the ground in his first 3 years in Lubbock. 2023, the breakout year where he rushes for 1,538 yards in just one season. 10 touchdowns, added 29 receptions that season, 74 total receptions in his career with the Red Raiders. And look, you have to have good hands if you're going to be a running back in that offense. And of course, Taj Brooks does have some really nice hands. This is a guy that, 87 missed tackles forced. This is a guy too, you look at 800-yard plus games throughout the season. There was just Kansas State held him just 2 yards shy of 100 yards. Otherwise, he would have had 9 straight, 9 in a row. And then if you look at Texas and Cal in the last 2 games, 95 yards in both of those. So this guy very well could have had 1,100-plus yard games to finish out the season. Also had a stretch of at least a touchdown in all but one of his final 8 games. So, yeah, Taj Brooks, production absolutely there, making some noise in Big 12 play. And, I love the vision. He's going to see the cutback lane, put his foot in the ground, and he's going to want to get north and south. But look, the lateral cuts. He'll make multiple lateral cuts before bouncing a run outside. Sometimes those lateral cuts needing to get 1 or 2 gaps over, and he's able to do that effortlessly for a guy his size. 95 forced missed tackles, though, most in the FBS. A guy that was just so physical, wanted to run through you. That was one of the things that was so much fun. This is a guy who has the vision. He's going to look for a hole, and then once he hits it, you better bring your lunch pail because it's going to be some work. He is so physical. You see the leg drive. He's going to drop his shoulder and run through defensive backs on the perimeter and then spin off another tackle and fall forward. That forward lean is absolutely there. He's a guy, look, stiff arms. You're going to see some nasty stiff arms from him as well. Active feet. He keeps those feet moving. Even when, he's bottled up, he's going to keep those feet moving and fight for every inch, every yard. So just when you think he's stopped, he's going to keep working, going to keep moving that pile. And then with that contact balance, his ability to stay upright and keep that pile moving is really impressive there as well. He's a lot of fun to watch because he's a big bowling ball of a dude. At 5'10" and 230 pounds, but then you see some of the shiftiness. You see his ability, that lateral agility, can get skinny through a crease, and excellent as a receiver. So he's one of those guys that I think can end up moving up draft boards as well with another big season. It's one of those things, look, we did it once after 3 seasons of okay play. Can he, now that everybody knows exactly who Taj Brooks is, can he really build up that momentum to help push him up draft boards? I think right now he's a day 3 guy, but could he potentially work his way into day number 2? That's going to be a big question mark, but something that I'm absolutely going to be looking for. Some other running backs to make note of. One of those is going to be Kyle Monangai, 5'9", 200 pounds, out of Rutgers. Really burst onto the scene a season ago with 1,262 yards and 8 touchdowns. 5.2 yards per carry. And with Monangai playing at Rutgers, he was really the workhorse for them, right? What I love about his play is, look, Big Ten rushing leader in 2023. One of the things that was frustrating with him was he had 5 straight games without a touchdown. So if you're going to be that bell cow, you need to make sure that you're getting that job done for your team. So 1,200 yards, but only 8 touchdowns on the year. 3 of those actually coming against Virginia Tech in week number 3. So didn't find the end zone a ton. I know that Rutgers, this is a team that, look, they actually overachieved. I think when it was all said and done, because I think they won 7 games, including that bowl game there against Miami. But with Monangai, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this year, if he can really build upon this, find that end zone a little bit more. That said, he still had 7 games with at least 100 yards on the ground. But this guy also, when you're talking about him as a pass catcher, a season ago, just 8 receptions, and there were 8 games where he did not catch a single pass out of the backfield. So obviously that's going to be a concern. Hopefully they can kind of change some of those things around a little bit. But he's very decisive. If he sees that cutback lane, he's going to put his foot in the ground and get north-south in a hurry. You love the powerful leg drive to finish off his runs. He refuses to go down. 5'9", 200. He's not the biggest dude by any means, but this is a guy that's just going to continue to work for every yard. Mostly an outside zone guy, so I think a zone-heavy scheme for sure. A guy who can absolutely make you miss in tight spaces. Quick jab and a cut. He'll set up those linebackers and drop the pad levels. The pad level, really running behind those pads, get those additional yards. You'll see him find small voids in defenses, attack those creases. Again, he's a lot of fun to watch. So if you haven't gotten a chance to watch him, make sure you tune in. You love his ability to, the route running ability is there. He just hasn't caught very many passes. He wasn't really targeted all that much. But I watched the Iowa game. There's a 7-yard out against the linebacker. Really good release. Had an arm over. Plants, drives away from the linebacker, creates some separation, makes a nice catch out of the backfield. I just wish we get to see a little bit more of that. He doesn't always slow down the free rusher's momentum as a pass protector. That's one of the things that I saw there in that Iowa game, especially where some of the edge rushers coming off, the free runners, I should say, like Sebastian Castro getting in there. There were times where he was able to slow up Castro and really stifle him, but again, consistency just wasn't always happening in that game. So that was a little bit of a frustration. One of the things that was really fun was Logan Lee had him in the backfield, just dead to rights. But what Monangai did, he takes him laterally to set this up, plants outside, cuts it back inside. And I mean, Logan Lee had it read, blew up the play, and Monangai was still able to salvage the play. I can't remember if he ended up gaining a couple of yards on the play or if he just got back to the line of scrimmage, but really impressive, to be able to do that in the backfield. I mean, you're thinking quickly when that comes onto you like that, and really thinking quickly on his feet, and really love the ability, that improvisation there in the backfield, making guys miss and salvaging what you can. Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State, 6 foot, 222 pounds, 1,000-yard rusher in 2022, 6.8 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns. 2023 was a different story, though. 752 yards on the ground. His production yards per carry average dropped by over nearly 2.5, down to 4.4, and 8 touchdowns, 26 receptions as well. This is a guy that you're going to see some physicality to him. I think this is a guy that has decent contact balance. He'll spin off tackles, fall forward for you. You'll see some lateral cuts to avoid linebackers in the hole. Patient to allow his offensive line to make blocks for him. It's just the productivity, and then some nasty stiff arms too. But really, you want to see that play step up. Penn State is trying to turn the corner, and just like Drew Aller, really hasn't lived up to the potential. You see it. You see flashes. We saw Nick Singleton, in 2022 as the guy. He and Quinshon Allen were really expected to be that 1-2 punch. You look at Ohio State. They got TreVeyon Henderson, and they've got Quinshon Judkins now. Nicholas Singleton and Quinshon Allen need to be that 1-2 punch for the Nittany Lions, and I'm just waiting for Nicholas Singleton to put it all back together and return to that 2022 form. And the big question mark is which guy are we going to see? That's going to be the big question mark right now. Speaking of guys, which running back we're going to see, Raheem Sanders. Rocket Sanders there out of Arkansas, 6'2", 227 pounds. This dude started his career as a receiver, moved to running back out of necessity, and all he did in 2022 was put up 1,443 yards on the ground, 6.5 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns. Also had 28 receptions to his name. Ended up only playing in 6 games in 2023. Had a knee injury that kind of really was nagging throughout the year. Missed 5 games. Really struggled with his lateral agility. Had to decelerate, had to take extra steps to make some of his transitions, some of those cuts. And so you saw that quite a bit. Then he tears his labrum, has shoulder surgery, in December. Tore it, the final game of the season there for Arkansas. Now he's transitioned over and moved to South Carolina. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do there in that new home of his. But when you watch him play, again, natural pass catcher, elusive in space, will make you miss in the open field. Like Donovan Edwards, a guy that's going to be more of a slasher, quick lateral cuts, avoiding defenders coming downhill in the hole. And then wants to get downhill. That's one of the things you're going to be seeing. He wants to get downhill. You love his ability to plant and cut back against the flowing linebacker, so he does a good job of manipulating some of those second-level defenders to be able to do that. You'll see him change some speeds to set up defenders as well. But I think really the biggest thing is, and really where his play takes off, is that ability to just kind of slash through after pressing the line of scrimmage, and then allow him to take off and use some of that speed. The big question mark, though, is the durability. He had the knee issue and really wasn't himself, and then the shoulder. Is he going to be able to run with that low pad level like he was able to do there in 2022? Is he going to be able to catch the football like he did? And then is that knee all the way healed to where he's able to play with that explosiveness that we saw in 2022? That's going to go a long way towards improving that draft stock. If his health is still going to be an issue, then unfortunately, there are so many other running backs in this draft class that are ultimately going to, that are going to move well ahead of him. I think right now you're probably seeing him as a mid-day 3 guy, but a guy that I think at one point we were talking about probably on the upper tier of this draft class. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do there in his new home there at South Carolina. Another guy who's making a new home, and formerly of the SEC's Mississippi State, moving to the new Big Ten edition in USC, and that's Jo'quavious Woody Marks. 5'10", 210 pounds. Interesting dude because, look, he never rushed for more than 582 yards, which he did in 2022. But you look at him and 214 receptions in his career. Remember, Mississippi State, the late great, the Pirate, Mike Leach, running that air raid offense, 83 receptions in 2021. I mean, it's insane that the production coming out of the backfield as a pass catcher. He battled an ankle injury during portions of the season, especially against Alabama. That was something that we definitely saw in that game. But I love him as a pass protector. That's one of the things that I will say. He'll step up. Safeties, linebackers. The Alabama game was a perfect example. Steps up, takes on Malachi Moore in the hole. Good leverage, holds his spot, absorbed the collision, didn't give up any ground, just stones him. He's got some speed to get to the edge. 2023 starts out with 298 rushing yards against Southeast Louisiana. Understands leverage, especially as a route runner. I think that's one of the things that you definitely see, being able to take advantage of that. Good elusiveness in space, a little bit of a wiggle, not a ton, but a little bit of a wiggle there. This is a guy that just a model of consistency in that offense. I think at one point they talked about him having, what was it? It was 40 consecutive games played to start his career, which was a record there at Mississippi State. And when you look at his ability to catch the football, which is really that showcase of his, he's caught at least one pass in every game of his career. All 45 games there at Mississippi State, he caught at least one pass. So I know when you look at USC, what's going to be interesting is how he fits into that passing game there for Lincoln Riley and company. I really like to, they wanted to get the football to Marshawn Lloyd, but mostly Lloyd, Austin Jones, they were kind of that change of pace to that passing game, and really running the football a lot more. So I think it may be to his advantage because he is a good pass protector, natural pass catcher when they need him, but he'll be able to showcase his ability to run the football. The vision, his ability to see the cutback lanes, put his foot in the ground, get north and south, his ability to break tackles. Guys are going to try to wrap him around the waist. He's going to keep those legs churning and keep driving down the field. He'll drop his pads. There was one hit where he hits Justin Flo square in the chest, drives through him, able to gain another couple yards. So he's bruising and physical coming downhill, a little bit of wiggle on the outside as well. And he's a guy that, against Arkansas in 2022 had 10 receptions for 80 yards in that game, which, is absolutely insane. So, again, the pass catching, we all know about that. I keep talking about it, but it's one of those things to where it's pretty impressive from a running back spot. And now he's transitioning there to SC, where USC is probably going to use him a lot running the football between the tackles, getting out on the perimeter. They want to use him a lot like they did with Marshawn Lloyd. So I think Woody Marks, because of his ability to do a lot of different things, he's a guy that's going to move up draft boards. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being one of the surprises this year. Falls into that late third or fourth round range. He doesn't have quite the feet and the explosiveness of Marshawn Lloyd, so he's probably fourth round, because Marshawn was a third rounder. Fourth, fifth round is probably where Woody Marks goes, but I think he's one of those guys that's going to be a surprise this year. Everyone's going to be talking about him. That new location, I think, is definitely going to help him out. Nathan Carter of Michigan State is a guy that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. 5'9", 196 pounds, started his career at Connecticut, gets injured in 2022. I want to say it was a broken clavicle. Ends up transferring to Michigan State. And there at Sparty, 798 yards on the ground, 22 receptions. Had 19 as a freshman there at UConn. And so this is the guy that absolutely is adept at catching the football out of the backfield. But I love his quick feet moving laterally. Very quick. Getting in and out of those cuts. You see the speed running the arc on the outside, getting to that corner, getting to the edge. You love his ability to press the line of scrimmage. Again, talked about the lateral movement. He'll get over two holes in a hurry and then shoot the gap and get downhill. He's a guy that's going to run behind his pads to finish the runs. You're going to see the collisions. That's one of the things that's really a lot of fun when you watch him play, because you look at him and you don't think that he's the biggest back by any means at 5'9", 196 pounds, but he's going to really bring all of that 196 pounds to his runs. And that's one of the things that's a lot of fun to watch. Soft hands as a pass catcher. He'll catch the football away from his body. You'll also see his blocking. That was one of the, I watched him take on Sebastian Castro in the hole, put a shoulder right into his midsection. I don't always like it when they'll drop a shoulder like that, but in this case, he dropped it right into that midsection, stopped him in his tracks, just absolutely just stoned him. It was a lot of fun to watch. He just nailed him, and it took notice of that block for sure. So he's got some explosive acceleration downhill. You saw a lot of that there at UConn. Some of that explosiveness. I think that Utah State game was the game that really introduced me to Nate Carter. Obviously, I had to go back and watch some of his film as a freshman there in 2021. But that 2022 season, it really kicked off. That was UConn. Really a surprise there against Utah State, right? They ended up losing the game, but everyone rallying around what's UConn doing there with Jim Mora, right? 20 carries, 190 yards in that game at 9.5 yards per carry. And that was really where Nate Carter was a guy that I really wanted to keep an eye on. And the injury was unfortunate. Goes to Michigan State, and I think now with Jonathan Smith there, he has a chance to really start moving up some draft boards. So another guy that I'm really excited about there at the running back position. So those are the running backs I would want to keep an eye on as we transition into the college football season. So obviously, as you look at this year's draft class, there are a lot of guys to get excited about. I think when I'm looking at this group, there really isn't a definitive number one running back, right? I mean, when you look at it, I think there's a lot of good depth. I think, day two, you're going to see a lot of running backs. I said there were only 4 a season ago, and really that 4th, 5th round range, that was kind of what everyone was expecting would be the sweet spot for that running back class. I think this year's crop, I think the sweet spot could very well be the 2nd through the 4th rounds. I think when you look at the group that we talked about here, a lot of those guys, especially if they all decide to come out, a lot of those guys I think are going to be hearing their names called in that range. That really is going to be the sweet spot for this year's draft. Will anyone get drafted in round 1 unless somebody really has a tremendous year running the football and catching the football out of the backfield? I don't see a running back coming off the board in round 1. But again, early round 2, all the way through the 4th round there, that's where we're going to be seeing all these guys coming off the board. So definitely keep an eye out for all of these running backs. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And again, Ashton Jeanty is my number 1 right now. We'll see if that changes by mid-season or season's end. And then really as we get into the pre-draft process, we'll see if that changes up at all. So that'll put a bow on my running backs, that running back class, at least in terms of my preseason rank. Next podcast, it'll be all about the wide receivers. No, we don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. Do we have a receiver that's going to come off the board in the top 10 picks? No, but we do have some guys to get excited about, from Luther Burden out of Missouri to Tedero McMillan from Arizona, Ohio State's Emeka Egbuka. Yeah, he's back for another year. So we'll talk about that trio at the top of my top 10 list, break down the receivers as we make the journey through all of the positions. Look, I know the season's right around the corner. We don't have enough time to break down each of these positions before the season actually starts. But my preseason rankings, it's still not going to change too much when we're talking about the first couple of weeks of the season. I want to make sure that I get through every single position, bring you my top 10 as we get through some of the non-conference games, and then we really start hitting that stride with all of the conference play. We'll be well-versed in a lot of these players by then. So I hope you'll take the ride with me. And until next time, everyone, for ReadyForTheDraft.com, this has been the Ready for the Draft podcast. I've been your host, Greg Schutz. Take care, everyone. Enjoy your week. And until next time, I am out of here.